This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For February 20th, 2026, it's the best sounding and most curmudgeonly podcast in higher ed. This is the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, episode number 132.
Man, it's going to be a good
lot of them.
Can tell.
Yeah, we're done. That's it. No energy. Broadcasting live across 4 time zones, this is the only higher ed AV show with a completely verified, independently audited, and absolutely not inflated in any way whatsoever audience of 11,000 loyal listeners. You heard me.
It's true.
11,000 real human ears. No bots, no click farms, not aggressive badge scans from a trade show or imported from a shady attendance list, not a suspicious cluster of downloads from a server rack in a climate-controlled basement labeled definitely organic growth. These are authentic, badge-wearing, VLAN tagging, Dante clock-syncing professionals who voluntarily tune in every week for hot takes, cold truths, and the occasional rant about why someone specified 4K in a 42-seat classroom. We didn't buy them. We didn't trick them. We certainly didn't unleash an AI swarm trained exclusively on old Crestron manuals and Infocom floor maps. No, these listeners show up because they crave honest conversations about higher ed AV. Budgets, refresh cycles, politics, why are 3 teams responding to the same ticket, all that stuff. So if you're one of our 11,000 statistically irrefutable audience members, or just pretending to be one while your automation script refreshes your RSS feeds, I'm Chris Decker, and time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure.
Sounds like our stats went up from last week.
Oh, hold on to your butts, dude.
No way.
And let's say hello to today's panel of AV SuperFriends with this one. Our first panelist ensures every critical function can be executed with a switch, a dial, or a satisfying click. He's a director of mechanical interface assurance and physical button operations from Kansas City. Say hello to Mr. Jamie Reinhardt.
Research has found that just twisting a knob or touching the button is the most satisfactory control you can have.
You're not wrong. Our next panelist designs robust AV pathways built on shielded cable, proper termination, and the radical idea of labeling both ends of that cable. He's a senior systems engineer for copper-based content distribution from Corvallis, Oregon. Say hello to Mr. Mark Kolozinski.
We never said what was on the labels on each end. Sometimes they even match.
It's true. We didn't specify. Our next panelist prevents feedback and digital chaos by adjusting knobs calmly instead of launching a Teams call about it. He's a senior manager of practical gain structure and sensible audio levels from Greensboro, North Carolina. Say hello to Mr. Larry Darling.
Yeah, sensible audio levels sound about right.
That's a dad joke.
Wow.
Yeah, it is a dad joke.
You been sitting on that one?
You get a high five for that.
Our next panelist advocates for systems that function without subscriptions, firmware updates, or an internet connection. He's a vice president of hardware signal integrity from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Say hello to Mr. Justin Rexing.
Because hell with your wireless, I guess.
Hey, you can do it wireless. It's the best way to do it. And finally, special guest panelist provides hands-on solutions using test equipment, common sense, and a refusal to blame the network for everything. He's an executive consultant for analog resilience and tool belt-based troubleshooting, a.k.a. the guy you turn to when you need to edit tape with a razor blade. From Corvallis, Oregon, say hello to Mr. Eric Gleski.
I brought my own pretzels.
And he was complaining about the lack of appropriate catering.
The green room was not well stocked today.
So, we'll do better next time with our catering. On today's show, we're going to discuss the storytelling aspects of what we do as we deliver technology-focused content, or we use technology to deliver content, something like that, in our education systems, and why that's important to think about it from a storytelling perspective. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, to our now 12,000 listeners, yes, 12,000.
It has gone up.
Gained 1,000. We want to thank you for continuing to be the most statistically impressive and mathematically convenient audience in higher ed AV. We know that we crossed 11,000 mere moments ago, and somehow another 1,000 of you just materialized. That's not a bot, no bots, no suspicious IP blocks, no mysterious data center in Luxembourg that's refreshing our RSS feed. You're all here for the pure, unfiltered demand of honest, slightly sarcastic, and higher ed AV excellence. So to our 13,000 listeners, if you're listening to this as a recorded podcast, remember we stream live every Friday at about 3:30 or 3:15 Eastern. Actually, today we went a few minutes early. I think that's never happened. We've never actually gone early.
That's because our numbers are going up. We're giving people fair value.
So be ready next time. We might sneak in there. That's right. So you can join us live for that on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, or where you too can become listener number 13,001, or based on my live counter, 13,847.
Like the whole band, you too.
And if you can't make it live, yes, it's you too. If you can't make it live, you can connect with us on the socials. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, YouTube. Just search for AV SuperFriends. You'll find us. There is another group out there with the same name. They're terrible. Don't listen to them. And, frankly, look, if we can add 1,000 listeners in the time it takes to reboot a 2-series DMPS, imagine what happens if you share the show. So forward it to a colleague, send it to your campus AV teams, maybe sneak it into the next RFP you're writing, paint a QR code for the RSS feed onto your lecterns. We're not picky. Do whatever you want. And if you'd like to consider supporting the show, please consider donating. Your contributions help us to continue producing the only higher ed podcast brave enough to say that 8K isn't dead. It was never alive. AI is not going to fix your bad signal flow. And no, you didn't need to go to Europe just to learn all that. So to our 14,000 listeners, growing by the minute, and definitely real, absolutely sustainable, thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you.
I have one question. I got a question. We have a tally counter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We got that running?
Just like on the old websites and where you just had like visited.
So it just spins at the
It's
bottom.
on our MySpace page.
Yeah.
Don't you ever go there?
14,602, Justin. They're all real, not fake.
Of course they are. Our
It
entire
was Larry's
audience.
Claude bot.
Most things are.
All right, Justin, you ready to sing along? Because it's time for the news.
Do it.
All right, let's go.
That's not the news. It's this one.
Hey.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, and today's news article comes from, at least the version we have, it's because it's all over the place. It comes from Inside Higher Ed, link in the show notes. The title is, and Larry, this was the one that you brought up because it's close to your heart and close to your current
When I read this, I'm like, this is
position.
Larry. This is Larry. Yeah.
Larry
This is
did
not
this. Title is UNC administrators can now secretly record faculty. So that'll take the pin out of this conversation
They're just
grenade and just
clickbait
throw it in
title.
there.
Is it a clickbait title?
Kind
Larry?
of.
Larry, what's going on in North Carolina?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it is kind of a clickbait title. The more I read about it, like they had a very defined recording policy before, but it focused on like students being able to record, and you had to have students' permission. And if the instructor wanted to record for educational purposes, they had to have all the students sign, which is pretty typical. I mean, that's what you do in classes. This has just let the administration record the class without letting the instructor know. Now, they don't mention if they need to let the students know, which I find kind of interesting that you had to have the students' permission if the instructor was recording, but if the admins are, it's different.
But didn't they say in there somewhere that they've always done it and they're just putting it in writing now that they are doing it?
No, this is fairly new. Now,
It says
what I do find is interesting is they use Panopto to do it, which means technically most of our schools could have been doing this forever. And
See?
that's where I'm curious, like how many times have instructors been recorded without them knowing?
Do you
Previously.
support the Panopto systems?
I used to. We actually just moved off Panopto.
So they kicked you out, and then they started taking it over, and then
And
that Larry guy out of there.
UNC
Recording bots.
Greensboro. Again, not UNC Greensboro.
all the
Separate
same,
UNC.
isn't it?
Not
It's all
UNC
one.
Greensboro
So it's not the
yet.
system?
Not yet. Not UNC Greensboro.
Not UNC Greensboro that you know of.
Yeah,
But what if they are?
they're not because we don't have Panopto. There.
Well,
But yeah, I saw that it made a lot of noise in the state when it came out with the higher ed community.
was
I don't know.
everybody real mad?
Well,
They're mad about it?
yeah. What's going on there? What's the boots on the ground? What's the thought from people there? I mean, there's a bit of background to this particular case, is what's going on here, and the change in policy.
They used it to relieve a faculty member of their duties, and so
It's hard to do that.
It's practice
It is.
administrators
One way
have
of
used in the
doing that,
past
yeah.
to investigate professors have
Yeah.
now been formalized in writing, right? And so so apparently they've used this before to investigate professors for whatever that may be, how performance review or whatever it is. And so now it's just formalizing that, hey, we are going to
We can
continue
do
to
that.
use these tools, whether you like it or not. And so it's in writing.
When I read this, I immediately went back to some of the discussions we've had with Mark about the AI tools he's putting in place in his classrooms.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now more of this is going to be capable, even in rooms that you wouldn't associate with it.
So yeah, you're talking about more like the Teams rooms, the Zoom rooms, and all that AI, like the chat and all the filter stuff. Right. So I think there is a trail, a paper trail, a digital paper trail of sorts for all of that, besides just the recording themselves, right? So you'd have a transcript and all that. And so it's in a world that has more of this tooling and more of this capability, I would imagine we're going to see even more of this type of stuff, right? Can your AI transcribed version of yourself be used against you for whatever it is?
Yeah.
Probably.
Don't know.
Yeah, it kind of puts the classroom as a public place. And in a public place, you have to assume you are being recorded at all times.
Wasn't that always the case?
Yeah,
I kind of feel like it was, but it wasn't explicitly said. And now it is.
I remember long ago, we used to have big placards that were stuck to the outside of doors and classrooms that used to say recording and things of that nature going on. Remember those days?
It's become a more acceptable practice. And to Chris's point just a little while ago, now this is a formalization of a practice that was used prior. And I think it's probably a formalization because it's being used as performance or punishment duties, right? And I've often wondered, even during the transcripts, to the comment about these AI tools and the meeting transcripts and things of when, for lack of a better term, when are those evidence in the case against you or for you? I mean,
could be for you.
Is the pre-meeting, post-meeting conversations, are those now part of your persona, right?
It depends how bad what you said is.
Well, it is.
This could be a positive thing. It could be good.
It could be.
But it won't be a positive thing.
There are questions there, or where does that get sent to, or how does it go, or if you accidentally were in a. We've all been in those conversations where it's not really supposed to leave the room, but your AI copied it and then it got sent out to the members there. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to go there.
Wait, what? What are you sending to people?
Who's AI bot doing what?
Well, you just record a meeting that might be quasi confidential, right? Maybe you're talking about salaries or something with your immediate supervisor for your staff, but then that transcript gets pushed out, right? Now, what's the repercussions on that? Mm-hmm. I've had some of these questions in the past. I think it's curious, and to use this case in the reverse, like, is this something we should all look into as we're signing, not that we all sign contracts and things, but as we look at our employment records, be like, well, what is my response, or what's my rights as an employee on this end of this deal? It's a curious conversation. It'll be interesting to watch how this plays out outside, once it starts to get outside of North Carolina, because it will.
It already is. I mean, it's out there.
Was you? I don't know if I can't really see an article. Was UNC recording all classes all the time?
No, this came from a complaint.
You know of.
Yeah,
it was targeted.
Okay.
Yeah,
because they can use it to gather evidence, right, in connection with an investigation into alleged violations or university policy. But it's like going back to, like, is it recorded or was it recorded? Or can they start a recording unbeknownst to an instructor for that purpose?
The answer is yes.
Right. And so, I wanted to get Eric's take on this, because I think you've spent a lot of time with faculty and faculty senate and the like. And so something like this, do you feel like, I'm kind of trying to get a finger on the pulse of kind of what you would perceive like a faculty
response. You remember the conversations
therapy?
We were having, say, I don't know, 5.5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And the ubiquity of recording of everything, because we were online, there were numerous conversations about who has access to these things. Not that it was happening. Everybody knew it was happening. And the codification of whoops, there are these things. Here's who can use them. And I know there were a couple of instances where we were asked, "Hey, you have access to these things, right?" To which we had to say, "Not with your request." So we were talking about this, I think, maybe even 10 years ago, Mark.
It's been going on. This is not the first time. It's not going to be the last time.
And when Don started putting spy cams in all the classrooms to do his job better, there was a
that Don. You've got to watch that guy.
There was a small kerfuffle about, well, where are these going? It's getting easier and easier to make covert recordings. Full stop. And it's getting easier and easier for people to just claim that they can't deal with it. I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. I'm sure there's going to be a nasty memo coming from a provost somewhere and a faculty senate somewhere, and things are going to be said, and then someone's going to find a different way to get around it. And I'm not saying that administrators necessarily are doing this to be as malefactors, but someone's going to come up with a way, and then someone's going to exploit it again. I'm inclined to think that this started very innocently, and then spiraled out of control. That's because I'm a naive optimist. That's how I've lived so long.
But I think it does go back to kind of Raul's post there. Is like the question is less about recorded, but where the recordings are made available after the fact and who can access those, right? And so it's like not the fact of recording, but who has access to those recordings afterwards.
Well, and honestly, like one of the things Eric said is it's going to be harder and harder to control who gets to record. I mean, if students walk in with meta glasses now, there's no way the instructor knows they're recording. There's no way they can stop them recording.
They have big lights on them.
Oh yeah, because you have that ring light that circles. Exactly. Like at some point, like there's no way to stop the creation of that, and so where it's going to go, you no longer have the controls around it.
But shouldn't that just by default, like this is a public space, be on your best behavior?
But it's not.
Does that just become the? But
a classroom is not a public space.
It's not. But like, should you be on your best public behavior? I guess.
And the other problem with this is for the student side, code of conducts can be changed very easily. On faculty side, you might be dealing with contracts, and those can't be changed as quickly. Oh, we got to wait 3 years before we get to the bargaining on this. So it's not an easy thing to just say thou shalt or shalt not, and it becomes the rule of the day. We've been chasing these demons now for years. The invasion of privacy because of technology is real, and people don't really think about it until you get a headline like this, and then this is going to fade away until 9 months
until the AI transcript pops up. I mean, my agent bot leaked this about my teacher.
As well, in some of the work I do, I have to be very careful in assuring our clients, no, this is not going anywhere. There are some things that we do that are privileged and confidential, and they do have, some of them are smart enough to say, how confidential is this now that this has been recorded? And we can only say it's as confidential as we could make it.
I put it in this safe with a code.
And we're actually, I'd say we've got pretty good systems on our campus, but we haven't had some of the systems in place that people were able to exploit. So,
no, I think it's true. It's going to keep popping up, right? And the more and more we're doing everything we have been doing, everything that's been proliferating in learning spaces and conference rooms and all the like, my guess is we'll see this legal ramification continue to pop up when somebody feels that something's being used either for or against them. And it's going to be one of many lawsuits and clarifications we're going to see moving forward over the years. So.
You mentioned after COVID, we all made sure every learning space had the potential to be virtual, even rooms that really didn't make sense for the modality that they were teaching in. I'm curious if instances like this will push more instructors to request rooms without technology.
Let's go outside and teach.
Yeah, to just go a little bit farther back. And, I'm a philosophy major back in college. We never had a single classroom. Now, granted, that was 30 years ago or whatever, but never had a single classroom that had any AV in it at all. I'm curious, like, how much pushback we're going to get from certain disciplines that can do without.
You think the revival of the low tech, no tech instructor?
Well, make sure that they do it not at the beginning of the class and not in the middle of a section where they realize, oh, there's somebody that needs accessibility.
Exactly.
Yes. All right. Well,
tell Sam.
I just want to say on the outset here, and this particular case or this particular story based on I think was a lawsuit involved, whatever. It goes back about 3 years, I think. That they were it hinges on them secretly recording, and I'm curious how that works because I know all of my stuff. There's big red green lights on microphones. Cameras physically turn away when they're not in use.
Yeah,
unless someone
you can theoretically
is
go into the stream and just pull that down and do it
in theory, but you know they're not going to that level. Like Larry said, they're just pulling shit off a Panopto, which means are they just recording every class, or was this somebody who was already either recording or streaming their class and they grabbed a copy of that class session?
Well, and honestly, like you've went to extra effort to like do some of that. Like if you had a box cam instead of a PTZ, your camera wouldn't move. The instructor wouldn't know whether it was on or not. And
I added a PTZ head to my box cam.
So it just spins whether it needs to or not.
Or the camera's
why are you
hiding
putting red
itself
light, green
and the
lights
mic's
on the microphone? I mean, it should be a mystery.
There's no
It
lights.
needs to be a mystery.
No feedback.
It's just an air handler up there. It's not a mic.
By the way, we do have a couple of ceiling arrays in performance spaces, and they got upset about the lights in there on the microphones affecting performers. So they got up there with gaff tape and covered the LEDs, not realizing they were also covering some of the mic elements until I pointed out, we can just go in the software and turn those off if you
There's
really
also
like,
some pieces of gear that have a light that's red and solid when it's on.
I don't
and
understand.
no light when it's off.
Justin, I have rooms that the gooseneck mic is red when it's on. The other mics are red when they're off. So yeah.
I've had administrators ask why there's green lights on. Like, can you? Who's listening? Can you connect to that and listen to what I'm saying in their conference rooms and the like? So there's
aren't they in control of it?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I could, but I'm not. To a point where long ago we had to go up and like Sharpie them over because they just didn't want to see them. Which
Why
was
don't you
wild.
just turn them off in the config, Mark?
This is back in the day, man. Back in the way back.
Yeah, it wasn't a classroom, but I did a police station once where the captain used to come in and immediately take his hat off and put it on the camera so that it couldn't see anything after that.
That is very much a thing on my campus. It's and it's campus by campus. Every school is different. But here the campus culture is instructors are in charge of the cameras and mics, and so we get those annoying. Why didn't this record me? I'm like, well, you didn't turn it on. But they have to, cameras turn around in privacy mode or look away sort of thing so they know, and they want to be in control of whether those lights are red or green. That is their call. I know other campuses do it differently, but yeah, Larry, I've had people go in and hang their hat up on a camera. And the fun thing is sometimes they forget to take their hat with them, so we know who it was. But, hey, free hats.
Up there.
Yeah, I have many, many hats.
Chris has an eBay store for Stetsons.
Yes. All right.
Well, let's take a quick break. We're going to hear from one of our supporters here, and then we're going to come back and we're talking with Eric about the concept of storytelling.
Story. Yes.
Where is it? Here it is. Jamie, give me that slate.
Hit the button.
The AV Super Friends are supported by Computer Comforts, and they've got a brand new product hitting the lineup. Last year, CCI's Evolve Lectern was a big hit. A push-button power table combined with a super flexible AV cabinet. But let's be honest, not every room needs 24 units of rack space. Shocking, I know. And that's where the new AV Hub comes in. It's a lighter, more space-efficient solution for classrooms that still need real AV infrastructure. You get 8 units of rack space, and the whole thing sits only about 10 inches off the wall, which makes it a great fit when you're pairing it with a sit-stand power table instead of building a massive lectern footprint into the room. And this wasn't designed in isolation. The AV Hub was developed in collaboration with Texas State University, so it's built around real higher ed classrooms and real deployment needs. And that means fewer compromises, cleaner installs, and way less, why is this furniture the size of a refrigerator? If you want to see photos, specs, and all the details, head over to computercomforts.com/AV-hub. That's the new AV Hub from Computer Comforts. Purpose-built, space-efficient, and designed for how classrooms actually work. And thanks again to Computer Comforts for supporting the AV Super Friends. And yes, because we've already had some questions, that one does ship fully assembled and ready for action.
I just envision like a bunch of dudes out in the field with all this lectern stuff with like just cattle running around slamming into it as they're designing us at Texas State. That's just in my mind. That's what's going on there. So I'm intrigued.
Some sort of cattle roping lecterns.
Exactly.
Or no, cattle lectern roping.
Just real reliable. Okay.
So Texas State's known for their cows, I'm assuming?
Everything's bigger in Texas.
It's Texas.
Sure.
We're going to hear about that one. All right.
Probably here in a little while.
So let's jump right in. Good friend of the show and somebody I've known for many years, and he puts up with Mark on a daily basis. Eric Gleske is here. Eric is joins us from Oregon State University. Eric, what do you do there aside from tell us we're all doing our jobs incorrectly?
We don't have enough time. We don't have enough time for this conversation.
Oh,
Still time for that. No, I'm in media production. So I do everything from board meetings to full-on television production. We broadcast our commencement every year. I'm the guy in the booth calling cameras and making sure that all happens. So
at one point, you were the guy in my ear telling me to knock it off.
Yeah, probably. So we do a wide range of media production. A lot of it is done in support of the academic mission. A lot of it is done in support of the administrative function of the university. But a large chunk of what I like to tell people I do is I'm a storyteller. The ability of a project to move forward relies on people understanding what the project is. And one of the great ways to do that is to create some sort of media that helps people understand. People are able to consume media and know more than if they sit through a 1 hour, very in-depth demonstration of here's what we're going to be doing. Our campus is going through a process called AMP, the Administrative Modernization Program. We're replacing our ERP. We're getting rid of Banner. Actually, we're getting rid of half of Banner.
If your school has not done this, you're going to be doing this.
Wait, are you guys getting rid of the ban or the
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we're doing everything but the students. Goes live on July 1st, and then the student half of it, or the student more than half of it, is going to follow, depending on where. And there's all sorts of stories going around campus about what's going on, what is AMP, and so forth. And so I've been helping our team create messages, create events that are live streams that look more like a television show than even this. So it's media production and from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. Eric, I think you've been here the whole time I've been here, the 15 years or whatever.
I've been around. 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I think we've had a fascinating journey of many projects, many stories.
Fascinating is such a round word.
It is, yes. And oftentimes
Let's just say fascinating.
Yeah, we'll just say fascinating. I think some of the pieces that in conversations we've had around capturing transition and as projects are happening and documenting those things, because we find ourselves always looking back like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had this or that. I think you and I have had a lot of conversations around knowing we're in the middle of something and telling that story. So one, we're capturing it so that we can retell that and the power of that. And I think you have a lot of really good insights around like the importance and also how to bring people and interview them so that they can kind of share that mission. And you've been involved with the university for such a long time, and you have a really good way of working with folks to kind of bring them into this moment. So you can kind of look back through your catalog and say, pick a topic, what it was. I think we looked at, like, let's say COVID for a moment. You did a lot of work on that. Like we were in the middle of that. Yeah. And I think, and just share some kind of how do you work with folks to kind of bring them into because you work with all walks of folks that aren't people who are comfortable being in front of cameras and you're really good at telling that story and getting that out of folks. And you share some of like how you go about that, your kind of philosophical approach to bringing people in and kind of helping them be a part of that story.
First, do a couple of decades of work in the trenches figuring it out.
Sure. Sounds like a lot of work.
Mark, you can't ask that question. You don't have enough experience to ask that.
Your COVID was longer than mine.
But no, I have been making media and manipulating audio since the 70s. Mm-hmm. And when I started working in public television in New Hampshire in the early 80s, I started as a sound recordist, and I made my way up. After a few years, I was editing packages, that stuff that even went on PBS. The way technology has changed over the years is really difficult for me to wrap my brains around, because I remember editing on the Cube. I remember when Avid was just called Film Composer. I remember working with this 1.x version of something that became Final Cut, and then so on. The technologies that we use to tell stories have changed over the years, but the one thing that really hasn't changed is the ability to understand how a story is supposed to work. And when you're dealing with anybody, it doesn't matter if you're making a presentation about, we want to put this technology in this classroom, or we want you to understand our budget so you will approve it. You have to be able to present something to people that allows you to figure out what you want them to hear and to feel, and then to say, and then to do after you've done your presentation, whether it's a straight up presentation, just talking to somebody, or a full on multimedia extravaganza. And so that's the skill set that Mark's alluding to, that I bring to it. Just being able to understand how to cajole somebody to say something that makes sense in a way that doesn't sound scripted. And we would use these tools, technologies, techniques, ideas, especially during COVID, to help people understand, A, what the hell is going on? How do these technologies work? How can you use this technology in your classes? How to, literally making how-to videos where the buttons are, kinds of things. When we did project, was it 498, whatever number of classrooms it was, I went in and told that story so people understand why these people are on campus putting all these cameras in the rooms and putting up all the microphones, and how that's going to change the way we do things. And the other thing is how that changed, not just being able to have classrooms during COVID, but being able to suddenly, instead of having a handful of classrooms across the entire campus that had lecture capture, now being able to transform using Zoom to every classroom has lecture capture. And when you tell it as a story, people understand it better.
But you have a really keen way of removing the stuff in a conversation, because I think there's always that take where everybody makes it about the thing. Everybody's, I want to tell a story, so I gotta get a camera, I gotta get a microphone, I gotta do all these things. But that's not the story, right? It's not about the stuff. It's about the human piece of it. And I've seen you work with folks, like I said, administrators, students, all over, and you have a way of getting them to kind of ignore all the others, ignore the camera, ignore the lights, ignore the mic, and you'll ask questions, and you'll be you have a framing in your mind. This is the story we're going to put together. And you allow them to kind of get out of the shock and awe of the studio thing. If it's studio or out in a hallway, wherever it is, I think you have some key tools that you use in your back pocket, kind of say, hey, how do you get people to share and get out of that anxiety of being behind a camera or whatever that is? Because I think you do a lot in that realm that people probably just take for granted. And it's a difficult thing to kind of put words on, but I don't know. I think a lot of people, when you put a camera in front of their face and say, hey, let's talk about what you did and why you're doing this, they're like, what? But you have a way to kind of tease that out, and you let them know the story and where they fit in here, and here, let's talk about this. I've seen you have a very conversational approach to it.
I think, some of the things that I keep in my back pocket are just a sense of humor. When I bring somebody into the studio and set them down, they're looking around. The first thing I tell them is, this should be easy for you. I've set this up so it looks just like your living room. And I get a chuckle out of them. And they're like, oh, okay, this is going to be okay. I didn't hear all of that because I'm having, I think I might actually be having some sort of network stuff, because I dipped out earlier and I heard a siren. So, but what the thing is to really, and this comes from being around a long time, whether it's on the technology side or the softer side like I am, understanding where people are coming from. If you can empathize with what they are trying to do and what they need to say, it's going to make it a lot easier to help them do it. I have been in higher education for over 30 years. I understand the land-grant mission like it's the back of my hand. And I also believe in it. And so when people are coming to me and saying, we need to do this thing, I can contextualize it in a way that makes it so that I can understand it. And if I'm not confused, it helps me make them not seem confused as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, I mean, there really is no secret. It is, like I said, just do it for 20 years and you get used to it. And when I started working, I was at the University of New Hampshire before I was here, and I was there for 10 years. And it was the same sort of thing. We ended up creating content on campus that would go over to our public television station on campus at the time. They ended up spinning off into a private nonprofit, which is insane to me, which is a whole nother conversation. But we would send content over to the station, and they would come back to us and they would say, how did you do that? And the answer was, well, A, we've got production chops, but B, we're inside the university. We can get some people to talk about these things in ways that they are comfortable with. And we know also to listen to what they're saying and say, that's great, Dr. Scientist. Can you say that as if I was your barber? And oftentimes we go back on things just to have them, and when they understand who they're talking to and why they need to talk in certain ways, you just have to be confident in making them casual. You can't go, I mean, I don't like pull out the clown shoes and juggling tricks and so forth, but
I've seen you juggle.
Be comfortable.
I've seen you juggle. You have fairly good juggling skills.
And I've seen your clown shoes. So,
yeah. So I think there's an interesting piece here that I'm not sure if every university has this, but the group you work for, Eric, you have a unique charge sometimes where you can be doing something for a class. You could be doing something for an administrator, but the power of that media element with kind of the inner workings of the university, right? And how we communicate internally. And I'm curious if like other schools have that, where you're part of a mechanism where your job is to do the storytelling on, like you said, AMP in those things, and kind of speak to some of that, because I think that some of that work I think is really important, that a group is doing this thing. Here's how they're doing it, and here's why it's important to you. And I don't know if, or oftentimes we see that maybe it's farmed out to somebody else, but I think a lot of what you're doing for like the internal audience of our universities. I mean, Chris, do you have something like that? Jamie, do you have anything like that?
Well, I was going to ask a similar question, but without the actual delivery of a media piece, how, I mean, because no, we don't really have an internal crew that does this and farmed out as far as media is concerned, but we all are in situations where we have to portray the exact same information. So how, and I was going to ask, how do you go about finding that story, whether it's an in-person, I'm presenting this, or it's I'm recording this to present this? I mean, there are steps to be taken here, and sometimes that's the trick of how to present the information and tell the story. Do you work backwards? Do you know your conclusion? So I don't know. I feel like it's similar to Mark's question, but we just take the media piece out. Like, develop a story. Help me tell my story.
I literally have a form or a questionnaire that I have people fill out for me, and I say, again, what do you want people to see, hear, feel, and do when they consume whatever it is we end up creating for you? It can be a PDF, or it can be a full on video experience. It can be a meeting. You have to have whatever you're doing, you have to have a call for action. Otherwise, you're not going to go out and do anything. Your call for action may be, let's go build a room this week. Great. You don't need to tell that story, but maybe you do. Maybe you need to tell that story so people understand that the reason why these rooms are being built and this money is being spent is because this is where education is today. And this is what students are expecting when they come to a campus. We have an e-campus program, which is one of the more highly ranked ones in the nation. But we've been doing distance education since about 1868. How do you do distance education in 1868? Yep. Understanding that we went from a postal service to online distribution and everything in between helps. That is part of the story. And understanding a historical context of what you're doing can actually make a call to action make sense. Why are we replacing banner? because we started adding patches to it one day after we installed it 30 years ago, and it needed to go about 20 years ago. Right. And being able to explain why technology has, I don't always tell the story backwards. I mean, yes, I want to know what we want the call to action to be, but what I often try to do, and this is my, I guess, forte, if I had one, would be to say, how do I fit your call to action into the longer narrative of who the university is? Mm-hmm. Because when it comes right down to it, why are we here? Well, Congress said we need to teach people in Oregon and around the world certain things. So, boom, we are the only institution in Oregon mandated by Congress to do these things. Right. And how did we start doing them? How do we change doing them? What happened when we started sparking things on the air in 1922? Suddenly we had a classroom of the air. What happened when we went to TV? And so on. And you can see the evolution of technology in the evolution of education. And if you can, that's been my favorite way to contextualize everything, almost everything we do, because it comes right back to who we are. For us, Oregon State University, for those who don't know, we are the land grant in Oregon. And so that part of our identity is so key to what we do in making decisions going forward. So, yeah, I will sort of work backwards with the call to action and put it into that context. Mm-hmm. Gosh, now I make it sound simple, but really what I do is hard.
Well, but it is, but it's not. I like the idea that you have this form, and one of the things is, how do you want the audience to feel? And do people really come back to you and say, look, I need to trigger anger here. I need to trigger sadness here. I need to trigger. I mean, because sometimes that is the message you're trying to trigger.
Usually,
but do people think about that? I mean, when you do a TED Talk, you think about that. When I leave this TED Talk, I want every person in here crying.
Or angry.
Throwing tomatoes.
Well, in fact, in our podcast, that's we just want people listening angry.
I've done more crying than anger.
Not you, the audience.
No, there's crying and anger. There's
personally, he cries
of anger
every time. Oh my God.
There's no crying in podcasting.
But
it's all out.
I'm sorry, I kind of lost the nation of it.
No, thanks, Jamie.
You messed it up.
No,
Jesus, way to ruin it.
I'm actually having some network difficulties here, so it's coming through like from about a 1986 cell phone. But what I think I'm hearing is, how do we get people to feel, or how do we decide what we want them to feel? Generally speaking, that's if that is the question, and if it's not, I'm going to riff on it anyway. That's something that we talk about. There are times when we want to appeal to sentimentality, which is very difficult for me because I have no sentimental bones in my body. It's times where we want to feel pride. We are Oregon State University. We're doing these things. This is why we're special. I mean, that is if you can get people to feel pride, and to understand that pride is because of what we do, that's a very powerful feeling to then take to the next step, which is to do. You're proud of what you're going to do. You're going to try to do it better.
So I want to pick on that from him, because I think that's a bit of a transition point for us. That you and I we've talked at large about our big giant venture we have building across campus, our generative AI supercomputing facility, in this newfound reemergence of the importance of the research mission. Right, I think a lot of universities right now are saying we're going to go research focused. That's where the money is going to be. They're not making kids anymore, so we're not going to chase those kids they don't make anymore. We want to just research. And the storytelling component of the research mission and how important that is to the work we do for each of our universities, and how is that, in your opinion, becoming kind of this rekindling of the importance of what you have done over your career? Like, this is like now, like, hey, look, what's old is new again. I get to go out here and tell these fanciful stories of all of it again.
It goes in cycles. So, fun fact: if you're a research institution, you're probably applying for NSF grants. all things considered, and the last year or so has been a little bit different, and we'll see how it shakes out. But in the past, NSF grants allowed for, I think, up to 5% for communications. Which if you're a smart researcher, what you do is you leverage the communications money from your grant to explain what the hell you're spending all this money on and why your institution should be proud of it so they can back it, or why other people should be intrigued that they're part of an institution that is doing this sort of thing so that they can then back it and then and build it and so forth. Communication has always been a part of research, and storytelling is a big part of that. I mean, programs like NOVA are, intertwined in very much with research institutions. It happens to be produced at GBH, so they've allowed a lot of people nearby. A lot of the work that I did at UNH was more for the research side. We didn't really do a lot of the student side. Of course, this was 30 years ago, and the venues for reaching students 30 years ago, you send a VHS tape to a high school office, and it ran on a loop. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't the way technology has changed. What we do in storytelling is there's a lot more stuff going out more often in these non-centralized channels, things like this even, but on a more institutional basis. And what's confounded me, and this is where I'm going to go off the rails, is there's a lot of people who are hired because they understand the technology. Oh, I understand how this app works, this site works. I understand how to tweak this algorithm to get these more views and so forth. But if you look at
17,000,
if you look at YouTube, for example, if you were to look at YouTube, say, almost 20 years ago, you saw a lot of stuff that was transferred in from videotapes that had been produced and looked really good, or at least sounded really good. I started as a sound recordist. I can barely stomach most of what's out there in the various media channels, the user-contributed media channels, because it's all shot on somebody's cell phone in the wind. And that counts as storytelling somehow. But doesn't matter if the story isn't being told well, because by God, we're on the app and we actually saw a tick in the algorithm. Oh boy. Can you imagine? And my job, this is the thing I've been having to deal with for the last several years, mostly since COVID, because with COVID, everybody said, oh, wait, we can just do it ourselves in a huge uptick in volume compared to pre-COVID, is to say, imagine how effective that uptick would be. If it's this on the algorithm, it would be this on the algorithm if it actually looked and sounded good. Mm-hmm. And the irony is, as the tools have made it more accessible to do a really good job, more and more people are doing are we allowed to say shitty here? Shittier job.
Yeah.
than the story deserves. And they are allowing, whether it's in terms of technical quality, bad audio is my ask Mark, that's my big beef. Mm-hmm. But even just really sus storytelling, if you start telling me a story and then cut off because you're at your 15 seconds, what good is it? I don't know. I'm not sure where to go, because I know one of the things Mark and I were talking about was, one of the talking points, digital fluency as institutional competency. What is digital fluency if you don't have something? What good is a ballroom if you don't have dancers? Mm-hmm. And I'm not suggesting I'm a dancer. Okay, I got to shift analogies quickly, but you can't.
We're boxers.
Exactly. And I think we have seen, and we certainly have it at this institution, but I have seen writ large across all institutions, the way the media lines have been so upended, rewritten, re-unwritten, rewritten, and so on, has made everybody go out and try to do their own thing. And as they're doing their own thing, they're realizing, oh, I need the new person who knows this thing because I'm an old fart. That's me. But then I'm going to make them do the stuff that the old fart would do because he understood the quality part of, it doesn't matter the size of the app. It matters the size of the heart inside of it. So I'm petering out. I'm too old for this crap.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was curious about how, with the change in more, we'll call it short form storytelling, how does that affect your storytelling now?
He can't. He just mutes him.
Oh,
He
he's
just
muted.
shuts off. I'll unmute him. He doesn't even know.
See, I'm the old
There
guy.
we go.
I muted my mic to talk. So
There you go.
I've worked on multi-part, documentaries to 15-second spots and everywhere in between. The philosophy that I always take to things is, what is the correct length for the story? If I take 30 minutes to tell a 5-minute story, I have not done my job. If I cut something to 5 minutes that really needs to breathe for 20, I've not done my job. It really, short form storytelling to me is something that's going to be under 10 minutes. Spot storytelling is the 30 to 90 second range. Not everything can be shuffled into one category or the other. You can't do the same thing in 90 seconds that you can in 6 minutes, let alone 9 minutes, let alone Ken Burns. So depending on the resources and depending on the importance, you might be playing things out where I have now a project that I'm in the middle of that has about 20 hours of cumulative interviews with various stakeholders on campus for AMP and a few other things that I'm pulling over the course of this last year and through this year, 90 seconds here, 90 seconds there, doing almost a series of things over a long period of time, because you can't hold an audience for the time it would take to watch the entire 15-minute event. But if you spread it out over a number of plenaries, suddenly people have consumed it that way. It's knowing your audience. It's knowing your content. If you're going to go, if you have a 30-minute conference slot and you fill it up with 25 minutes of video, you're not doing your job, because you want to have more time for questions.
Should we in education, and we even being more instructors than us, be more considerate of that, of the time? Like, does it have to be a 50-minute class, or can I accomplish what I need to accomplish effectively in 15? Is this a change that might happen in real life as more than just media?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
Well, I figured I'd get you. We opened the show with curmudgeon, so let's get after it.
No, I think I think the premise of the question in education is almost kind of. I think there are universal truths when it comes to storytelling. It doesn't matter if you're in education. It doesn't matter if you're in high tech. It doesn't matter if you're in government. It doesn't matter if you're in WGBH. Some things are more fixed in their format. Some fixed either in time format or in storytelling arcs. These are the beats we're going to hit. Mm-hmm. If you have to know what you want to do, you have to know what needs to be done in order to get it done. And this is just going to be, I'm going to paint with one of the biggest brushes I have and say, so many people are just doing because they can. If you're intentional, and this goes to a classroom build. I'm going to bring it back to you.
I love it. Yeah, keep going.
Mm-hmm. If you can build an 8K room with multiple Axios overlaid spatial systems, great. The guy's talking about math at the front of the room and doing things on a whiteboard still.
How do I put my PowerPoint on that?
No, he's not even doing PowerPoint. But you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We don't rent a crane to do a trustees meeting. It would make them a lot more interesting, that's for sure. But you have to understand. And I think that a lot of people get lost in the technology. We're going to do this because we just learned this app.
We bought it. We're doing it. We bought the thing. Let's go.
They're doing it over there, so we have to compete.
Mm-hmm. It's the arms race.
So anyway, I hope that answers some of those questions.
No, but I think that's perfect, because I think sometimes we do get caught up in what's the new whiz bang, what's the new thing, what's the new AI, instead of just saying, is it more effective, more efficient, more conducive to this environment to do it this other way that maybe it's the same way we did yesterday, and that's okay because it's the most effective way for this.
I'm willing to bet every one of you on every one of your campuses has had at some point an administrator come to you and say, have you thought about putting this in a classroom? Because they saw something somewhere. Not because they know what it is, or half of them even know what happens in a classroom.
They went to a conference, they saw this thing that somebody else did. We must have it here.
Yeah, there's a lot of active learning spaces across campuses because they saw it and weren't intentional about developing the faculty and telling the story and making it work in that space.
Larry, you don't have to do that. Just more TVs.
Our learning group wanted to put 65-inch TVs on carts that you could touch in every classroom because that's the best way to teach.
Got to be able to touch it. It's not real if you can't touch it.
Who can see it? I don't know.
It's more tactile.
We just got to touch it. We don't care to see it.
If I had to sum up, what do you want people to know? What do you want them to feel and do? What can you do with intent? I think that applies to storytelling, and I think that applies to what you do as well. And you can leverage the storytelling side of it to do what you do better. I mean, what you're doing here, and I've been a big fan of what Mark's been showing me from some time, is...
Well, he only shows you his stuff. It's like, look at this.
You never see these other guys. This is the first he's ever heard of you guys.
That's why he's been doing the shorts.
Yeah. So, but and we could actually have a whole nother discussion about this, especially with something like with our eCampus. You can use some of these technology. Academics can apply this in what they're doing in the classroom. If they're just getting up and doing a rote, like we all know the bad teachers. We all know that they could be better if they would just do this one thing, or just focus on, or just actually create something that has more of a story-like arc to keep people. We know that happen. What I'm blessed in that what I do is universal. I mean, when you think, if I use the word storyteller, I mean, you can actually conjure up, nomadic tribes from 1,000 years ago around a campfire with, the white bearded old fellow telling them how we used to edit with razor blades. It's a constant, but it's needed across all disciplines, really.
Yeah. Eric, well, this has been a winding journey of sorts. We knew we wouldn't have a clean beginning. We certainly do not have a clean ending.
I want my mug.
We get a mug.
We got one.
Wow. We'll get you a mug.
Mark has your mug. He's been drinking out of it. So
everybody wants the mugs. I'm going to ask this question. I'm not really sure what the answer is going to be. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you because they're interested in storytelling and kind of your take on higher education storytelling, is there any way in which somebody who is listening within our audience, one of our 18,042 new members that are listening, could go about getting hold of you to actually, if they wanted to know more? Where are you at in the world?
I'm at Oregon State University. The neat thing about me, my last name is Gleske, Gleske, and there's very few of us in the world, and I'm the only Eric. At eric.gleske, Gleske, at Oregon State. Or reach out to Mark, and he'll hopefully
he'll forward your mail.
Yeah. And Chris just bought the domain, so we're good.
I've already got the .org, so.
Nice.
Eric, it's been awesome having you here to kind of share some of that. And like I said, you'll come back again because I think there's so much more. Yeah. So much more ground to cover with you, and so I know you have some things you got to get to during the day.
As Mark may have alluded to, we spend a lot of time, and I think Raul's been here too. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of deep dives. There's a lot of convergence between what I do and what you do, specifically in planning spaces. Mark's probably talked about a big space he's working on campus. That's an excellent example of what's the purpose of this place kind of thing. Because there's all sorts of things that they can do over there, even if they had an unlimited bucket of funding. And so we have to figure out, even then, we have to figure out how to do that wisely and with intent. So it's not just turned on once a year when the donor shows up. So, there's a lot of conversations.
I've been at multiple institutions where we built spaces like that. And about 3 times a year. Look what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, there's a story there.
Eric, you mentioned being intentional about the timing you're giving to a particular story and wanting to make sure things begin and end when they need to. And I think this one needs to end right now. So we're gonna roll out here and not drag this one on for forever and ever and ever. So to our 19,648 listeners,
numbers are going up. Let's go.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So, here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
All right, so for our next segment here, we're joined by two special guests, joined by Atkins Fleming with Texas State University and Chris Calavo with Computer Comforts. And we're talking to them because these are the two guys who work together the most to put together this new AV Hub, which is a really kind of interesting approach to how to get stuff in, space for stuff in a classroom without it needing to be a big metal box that all the stuff lives in. Because we've been doing big metal boxes for 20, 30 years. Right. And big metal boxes are great, but a big metal box plus a lectern plus a table plus teaching table, it just starts to become very cluttered, and maybe we're being a little more intentional.
Big metal boxes just have all blank plates on them now.
Pretty much.
A lot of mine do, actually. So I found a hidden stash of 4RU blanks. I've used the crap out of those.
Those are nice.
At $20 a pop, too.
We have nice shipping plates that we put in our racks that are like about 4U that people keep. We just put them in there for security and for safeties to keep it square, and everyone uses them.
Hey. You should include those with every product. So, so Atkins and Chris, I'll just let you guys go. I mean, so the AV Hub is Chris, and correct me on this, is kind of a departure from what you've been building. This is kind of a new product line. How did this come about? Was this something you were thinking about, or did Atkins come to you, grab you by the collar, and be like, I need something different for my classrooms. There's too much, furniture in here. What am I doing?
Well, usually how this comes, you get, as a salesman, we get tired of saying no to people. They're like, hey, do you have this? Hey, do you have that? And then Atkins, I saw him in July at the HETMA conference, and he goes, hey, Chris, can you do this? And I'm like, oh, you're not the first person to ask me that, and we need to start doing it. So, we jumped right in after HETMA. We exchanged a few emails, kind of get some ideas, and we threw some rough sketches at him. He turned around and said, okay, well, I don't like that. I want this. I want that. And sketches went from sketches to drawings to prototypes, all in 2 months, essentially how it came to be.
So Atkins, what'd you take him? I mean, like,
what
besides a headlock and a suplex? I mean, what were you pitching to him?
What were you trying to get? What was the goal for you?
Yeah, what was your idea?
So this came from a desire for us to become more modular and flexible in classrooms specifically, but obviously that extends to other spaces we interact with. So, Mark, to use your term, kit of parts.
Yes.
So we're sort of adopting that philosophy somewhat, and we've been doing the lectern with the rack in it. In fact, we kind of co-designed that product with Computer Comforts.
The Evolve?
8 years ago. No, the PowerLift AV.
PowerLift AV, yeah.
I even had it pulled up here.
You're ready to show it?
Yeah.
I was ready to go. I'm going to do it anyway.
The PowerLift AV.
No,
there's the Evolve. Hey,
That's
that Evolve,
but I'm doing it anyway.
That Evolve is ready for action, though. So
It ships fully assembled and is ready for action.
So anyways, we worked with these guys for a long time, and we've been doing the equipment in the rack, and there's just issues there. We had issues with weight. We had some issues with heat. We had some issues with
issues with weight?
Available space. Hey man, this was like 7-8 years ago.
Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas.
PS5.
Hey, we did address some of those issues for you.
No, these were issues of ours, not your doing. So
homegrown issues.
And then as we
way too much after I'd done.
Yeah. As we've sort of moved toward this more modular approach, we wanted to be able to keep a consistent base in all of our rooms and then bring in other pieces as necessary. So in a large room, we might put a 60-inch lectern table there for instructors. But in a 20-person room, maybe we just need the small base footprint, and there's just a desk or something next to it. So it kind of drove this idea of like, how can we take what we're doing in our current lectern and move it out of the lectern and put it somewhere else? And then that evolved, and it's like, where should we put it? Well, we'd been standardized for years on having our infrastructure in a kind of a consistent place on the wall, power, data, and conduit for AV right next to each other. So it's like, well, why don't we just put it on top of all that stuff? It hides it all. People can't access it. And so we started looking at those products, and we just couldn't find one that was like the perfect fit. There's some similar products on the market, but we were looking for little different features here and there. One of the big ones, and Chris may talk about this too, is most of similar products in this line are only wall mountable. And that doesn't work everywhere. Sometimes you have a hat channel. Sometimes you have concrete. Sometimes, it's like, sometimes you just
want to mount it on the damn wall.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't trust the wall to not fall down.
Right.
So what you building down there?
So we're like, maybe this thing should sit on the floor and just kind of attach the wall so it doesn't fall over. So like that was a feature that we hadn't found. So lots of these things drove the kind of what we were looking for. And because of that longstanding relationship with Computer Comforts and kind of designing a product with them in the past, I kept just I was bugging Chris, and I had been talking to my sales rep, which Chris isn't, for a little bit. And then when I ran into Chris, I was like, okay, I'll hit someone else. And sure enough, give two people the same message, and all of a sudden there's more traction.
Yeah.
So this lectern, I've been wanting to use something like this for a while, and I'm batting back and forth the idea of putting something on the wall that might put the instructors back to the students. What response and how are you dealing with that perception of this type of design?
Yeah, so our intent is for, in the perfect scenario, like new construction, this would be on the side wall, adjacent to the teaching table.
Even on a side wall, it's still kind of back to the students in a way.
It's not a standalone lectern.
Jamie, bring up that other slate. That one. There you go.
So
you always have that table.
Yep.
Yeah. So it would be
you got a secondary thing there.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So that's how the top right picture, for those who are just listening, it's the
Describe
unit
it,
mounted
Atkins. I can't see it.
Yeah, the unit mounted on the sidewall, and then a 60-inch table kind of sitting right next to it. That's kind of our default approach that we're taking, but you could use it without the table. And, maybe you put a monitor arm in the top of that box, and it hangs out with a keyboard on it. Or maybe there's no keyboard or monitor at all. So that was how we were looking at it, Justin. So we don't necessarily anticipate a user like having to interface with this box. And that was part of removing it from the lectern, is like, this is our equipment. The stuff the user's not really touching.
Stay out of here.
Let's put it over here.
Just paint it right on top. Do not touch. Stay out.
No touch.
However, and I've already brought this up to Chris. We've already talked about this. I have scenarios where I do want people in there, so
I want an access door on one of those sides.
See, I'm not crazy.
Customized.
Yeah. And for those of you who are just listening, there was a giant eye roll, and oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
No,
That's
I always take I soak it all in, and then try to come up with a solution.
Ignore the ones I don't like.
And we try to keep things simple. I don't want to have like 20,000 pieces that it's like an erector set that you have to put together, or something that's going to clang and fall off. So we really try to build things solid, and the more single pieces that are larger, the better and easier to maintain and easier to ship as well. So having an access panel or an access hole, something like that could be in the future, definitely, because it's already come up. It's already come up several times. And I just was on a call with a customer who buys a lot of our tables, and just introduced the hub to him in a call. And immediately she's like, well, can you put that power axle into the top of the hub? And I'm like, So it's a little interface with power receptacle, USB A and C, and belays, which are a little pass-through. She's like, this would be perfect. I could put my restaurant control, and the faculty can have a laptop, set it on top, and plug everything in and work right from there. I was like, wow, okay, I didn't think of that. So
yeah,
we
debated using it for like the BYOD connection in the room as well.
Right.
Didn't opt to go that way for the standard, but it's definitely possible. And then for another cool thing is it gives you this, it's 10 inches deep. It gives you this little shelf that you didn't have before. And so you guys know how congested the top of the lectern gets. Whether you have one or two monitors, maybe a document camera, some sort of cable cubby or connectivity thing. It's just, there's a lot going on there.
And my coffee mug.
And what's the piece that just doesn't fit nicely in any of that? The wireless microphones. And so now I have this little 10-inch shelf adjacent that I can put, whether it's like a Shure drop-in charger or a Catchbox system, and it just sits right there. It's right next to it, but it's not occupying this space that is very fought for.
Actually, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about the Catchbox in particular, because people do like the throwable mics, but they take up space. And if you start aligning, I need two of those, plus maybe it's a bigger space, and I've got a larger room, not bigger space necessarily, but a larger room where I've got a handheld or something else there, and that. But I can put that off to the side. It's still available, but it doesn't take up my teaching space because not everyone's using that.
Yep. And that's how we plan to use it. We've already mocked it up with the Catchbox kind of sitting there. Yep.
Well, and as much as we'd like to sell a lectern with every AV hub, it's a great solution. If you have your own standard of lectern already in the room, we could provide an AV hub, potentially match the colors to the lectern you already have, paint colors, laminate colors. So we got some nice combinations that can blend in with any existing environment.
And yes, you can do darn near any laminate, because you and I have gone round and round and round about trying to match laminates to 100 different rooms and multiple calls, and let me look at this sample and versus that sample, and
we'll edit that out later.
I do want to ask about the name on the development. This calling it the AV Hub. Where did that name come from? Who came up with that? Because it's an interesting play to say, and Atkins, I think you mentioned it, this is my stuff. This is not your stuff. This is us over here. So this is the AV stuff, the IT stuff over here. Stay out of here. But at the same time, you didn't declare it as a equipment rack, as a credenza, as a wall mount cabinet. You said, no, it's the AV Hub. It's a kind of a nebulous box into which we can put many things.
And that was very intentional. So obviously, we're not reinventing the wheel. There are products out there, as Atkins said. So it's really not a credenza, true credenza, and it's a little bit unique in itself. So we wanted to have a unique name, and a hub being a central point that you could spur off of. So
makes sense.
It sounds like you guys workshopped that name a little bit.
I did. ChatGPT was very helpful.
Atkins, you missed your
team.
You missed your chance, Atkins. You could have been like, not me, all
Anything.
me.
Yeah.
Nope, it wasn't me.
Well, yeah, he wanted to call it the Atkins, I think. But
I'd like
That's a
the
diet.
Atkins.
That's something different. That's
Well, we
just a
saw the
diet.
Dector at one show, so now
saw
we
that.
get the Atkins.
Whoa.
You did? Wait,
careful.
which?
Careful.
The
Wyoming
Wyoming one.
Yeah.
The best lectern. That's right. Now, my
The Wyoming lectern that they were featuring.
Chris hates with every fiber of his being.
We'll make sure
It's so
that
popular.
at the next show that this one has Texas State on it. We'll make sure.
Chris,
That's a good point.
one
Chris,
of
you were
the-
already talking about Infocom needing to do it there, so I think we need some branding.
It'll be there. It will be there for sure.
Yeah.
We
Jamie, go
talked
ahead.
We talked several times about your computer conference willingness to kind of work with us on some of these things. How can we go about one? Let's go check out the hub online. And two, if I want to investigate a tweak of some sort, how do I go about that process?
Well, everybody in every region has a different sales rep, and every week we all meet and we all brainstorm of what we're hearing from our clients. So you just ask your whoever your sales rep is and throw some ideas, and then they usually come to me, to brainstorm, and then we we've been doing this for so long that we have pieces and components from, like, people will say to us, hey, I love that about this lectern, but can we put it in this one over here? And we're like, sure. So the more feedback we get, the better we can make our products for you. So
to kick that conversation off, though, I could just go to the website.
You go to the website. The website, you can do a request for information, and then that will immediately get sent to your regional rep.
And I think that's literally how I started like 5 years ago. I just clicked that button. It was like, send me information. And that's where we are. So, yeah.
And here we are.
And then you get a call, and then you get a phone call. So, it's as easy as that. And we really, that's kind of been our claim to fame, since 1987 now. So we're going on, what was that, 35 years? And, working with our clients and building what they need instead of saying, here's A, B, or C, which one do you want? We try to make it for you. But the design process, that's the fun part.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And now to throw this out for you too, Chris, like having your own manufacturing is huge because you do have all those components from all the units because you're manufacturing them. So sure, why not move it from this unit to that unit? Yeah. It's in the factory right there. So
yeah, and it's kind of like Taco Bell. What do they got? 6 ingredients, but they make 30 different things.
Yep. Don't compare
some of those 6 ingredients we don't really know either. Like those are surprises.
You're much better than Taco Bell. Oh.
So, everybody loves
a laboratory, but just all these different lectern parts in the back, just putting stuff together.
Well, it's essentially, it's laminated tops. We do our own steel work and we do all our own powder coating. We do all of our internal engineering and design, and we're not sending components out to China to get them knocked off. It's, it's being made in Texas. So, we do have 2 facilities now, one in Texas and one in North Carolina. So, but these are all
Larry, they're coming for you.
Coming to get you.
That's right. Right. So
nice. All right.
Well, very cool. Like, I'm interested in trying one of these out. I've already got a couple of projects in mind for these. Chris and I have already been talking about some light tweaks for my stuff.
Well,
Atkins, I appreciate
it. Well, the first thing Chris says is, I sent him an email. I go, hey, what do you think of this? Well, could you make it wider? Could you make a 40?
Change everything about it. That way, make it this.
No, the concept is valid because Chris came out to my campus. I'll just put this out there. One of the few manufacturer sales representatives who made the trek to Wyoming and
it's a long
around a bit.
It was a beautiful trip. I didn't drive the mobile showroom though.
Yeah. He flew out in a plane, cheater.
Was that in January or June?
But we looked at the type of rooms I build. I build a lot of conference rooms and seminar rooms and these small. And we talked about spaces like this. And for me, this is a fantastic fit. I need a few slight tweaks and modifications, but this is very much kind of think probably a 1.0 product. And a few years from now, it'll be a version 2 or whatever it is. We'll have a few adjustments and things available. So
yeah. So the 48-inch and the 60-inch are in engineering and design right now. So
see, we did it.
So, perfect. So for the case where the conference room, that picture showed a conference room. So Chris brought up, he goes, if you got this big display, you need a bigger unit under for accessibility.
ADA.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, and so I just felt bad, and I was going to I was going to let him rest for a month before I hit him up again. So now I don't have to.
Don't worry, Chris.
You don't want those giant old school credences with 3 giant 14 RU rack things in there for your 2 RU worth of stuff.
48 inches deep.
Yeah. Well, and that's what came up is that even though you need it wider, the amount of technology is probably going to be the same, right? So whether you have a 40, regardless of the size of the display, the technology is going to be the same. So it's scalable in size because we're keeping the infrastructure the same and just making it bigger. So it should be easy.
Cool.
Well, so to Atkins and Chris, any last thoughts on the development or the process on the AV Hub? This is very cool stuff. I think people are interested in trying it out. Sounds like you're already getting some good feedback on that, and we'll certainly spread the word as best we can. But any other last thoughts?
I'll just end with a thanks to Computer Comforts for being willing to work with us, and it's yielded dividends for years now, and it's mutually beneficial. So I love it.
Well, and I appreciate Atkins for being the guinea pig on the first one. So, yeah. So
I'm keeping that prototype.
That's right.
You're not getting that back.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, so thanks again to Atkins and Chris for joining us, chatting about this interesting stuff. And, and it's one of those things that you don't necessarily think about, where am I going to put all my stuff in a room? Sometimes just a big black metal box is the way to go. But other times, let's be a little more intentional about it. So check out the...
be thinking about it.
You better be thinking about it. Yeah, check out the AV Hub, computercomforts.com/AV-hub to take a look at that thing.
That's it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Cool. Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.